I'm Zevi Saunders, and this is my Sedra blog. This week's Sedra is called Parshas Vayigash, and it deals with the meeting of Yaakov and his long-lost son Yosef after 22 years thinking he was dead. I think this week's Sedra is so brilliantly named Vayigash because in his old Hebrew dialect, when the children told Yaakov that Yosef was alive, he probably went, "Vayigash, he's still alive?" Maybe not. When Yaakov finally met Yosef, Rashi tells us, quoting from the Medrash, that it only says Yosef fell on Yaakov, his father, but Yaakov didn't fall on Yosef in crying. To answer this, the rabbis say Yaakov was reciting Kriyas Shema, the 3 paragraphs that Jews recite morning and night to declare that their belief in God created and runs the world, God is one, we should serve him, we should love him, and keep his commandments. The Gur Aryeh, the Maharab, explains, this wasn't the normal time for saying Shema, but rather Yaakov felt so compelled, such an outpouring of emotional love towards God, by finally seeing his son he thought was dead for 22 years, that he couldn't help himself but have a wonderful showing of emotion by reciting Krishma and pledging his belief in God and thanking him for all the wonderful meeting with his son. Now let's embellish this further. What we are saying is that Yaakov, who as our rabbis explained, did not have the divine presence all the 22 years that he was separated from his son. Why? Because this divine presence requires simcha. Ein hashchina shore lo mitoch atzvus, elo mitoch simcha, says the Gemara in Shabbos. So Yaakov was not in a complete state of simcha. He was upset, he was mourning. Finally now his mourning was over. He was overjoyed and overcome. Even though he was coming down to Egypt, he was leaving the land of Israel, Holy Land. He was coming down, they say he brought down the cedar trees for the Jews to use for the Mishkan, so he knew about the exile. Even though he knew he was going into exile, there was still famine, he was still overjoyed. And I think we can take this lesson to heart in our own lives. People have issues, people have problems. Terrible problems. And they can't always see the light at the end of the tunnel. That's okay. Whilst one is going through a trouble, like Yaakov, he didn't have the simcha. However, when the trouble was over, as soon as he saw that at the end of it, Yosef was still alive and he had the tremendous thanking of God, we need to thank God. We need to see the good that God has done, even though we suffered, even though we had problems. And he had tremendous suffering for 22 years. He didn't hold it against God. He didn't get annoyed. He thanked him and he dedicated himself. And I hope that people will take this to heart and use it as a lesson in their own lives, that when troubles are over and they see the light, they should thank God and rededicate themselves to Him.